Junior Cert Geography, Chapter 1, The Earth. 1.3 Earthquakes. These are the key words that you need to know by the end of this part of the chapter. You need to be able to explain all of these. Focus, tremors, epicenter, seismograph, Richter scale, aftershock, tsunami, fault line. Earthquakes take place at plate boundaries, where plates collide or slide past each other. Pressure builds up and is eventually released when one of the plates moves suddenly. This results in an earthquake. The place underground where the earthquake begins is called the focus. Shock waves or tremors spread out from the focus and cause the surface of the earth to shake. The point on the Earth's surface, directly above the focus, is called the epicenter. Tremors are strongest at the epicenter. Here we have a diagram of an earthquake. An earthquake can last for up to a minute and can be followed by smaller tremors called aftershocks. Earthquakes and aftershocks can cause a lot of damage and destruction. Buildings weakened by an earthquake can collapse during an aftershock. So sometimes the aftershocks actually cause more damage. So in our diagram, we can see that the focus is the point below the surface where the earthquake begins. We can see that the tremors move outwards from the focus and they're strongest on the point of the Earth's surface directly above the focus, which is known as the epicenter. This is a fault line or a crack in the earth. We can see that this plate was moving downwards and this plate was moving upwards, so they were sliding past each other. These are the shock waves and they're moving outwards from the focus. Any buildings closest to the epicenter are going to have major damage. Further away will have minor damage, and then further away again will be undamaged. So the epicenter is the point above the focus where the earthquake began that has the most damage. This is a photograph of the damage after the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. It caused severe damage and destruction. We can see that this part of the building has started to fall down. We can see that some of these poles are leaning to one side. We can see that the actual ground has been damaged as well. And if we look quite closely, we can see cracks in the actual structure of the buildings. This is a photograph of a seismograph. Earthquake tremors are recorded on a rotating drum. So this is the instrument that records the magnitude of an earthquake. So we can see we have this little pin that sticks out onto the paper and it moves up and down depending on the strength of the tremors. And we can see that a blue zigzag line has been drawn into the paper. And the higher up the points are, the stronger the tremors are. So a seismograph is the instrument used to measure and record earthquakes. The Richter scale registers the strength or magnitude of an earthquake compared to other earthquakes. This scale ranges from 1 to 10, where an increase of 1 unit on the scale means that an earthquake is 10 times more powerful. The higher the number an earthquake measures on the Richter scale, the greater the destruction. 9.5 is the strongest earthquake that has ever been measured. The San Andreas Fault. The San Andreas Fault is the boundary between the Pacific and American plates. The San Andreas Fault runs for 1,300 kilometers through the state of California, USA. Because of its location on the fault line, California has experienced severe earthquakes. The cities of San Francisco and Los Angeles have both been hit by earthquakes that caused major destruction. San Francisco suffered severe earthquakes in 1906 and 1989. Los Angeles has been hit by many earthquakes, for example, 92, 94, and 98. An earthquake in Chile in 1960 had a magnitude of 9.5 on the Richter scale. This was the highest ever recorded. Case study, Philippines earthquake 2013. On the 15th of October 2013, a major earthquake hit the central Philippine island Bohol. The earthquake occurred at 8:12 a.m. and was located 33 kilometers below the city of Carmen. It measured 7.2 on the Richter scale. So if we have a look at our map of the Philippines, we can see that we have the Pacific Ring of Fire running alongside it. So this is the Pacific Ocean, and this is the plate boundary of the Pacific Ocean. And we can see the epicenter of our earthquake is located just below the city of Carmen, and that is on the island of Bohol. So that earthquake measured 7.2 on the Richter scale. The Philippine Islands are located on the Pacific Ring of Fire, where both earthquake and volcanic activity is very common. It was the deadliest earthquake in the area in 23 years. Some negative effects. A total of 222 people died as a result of the earthquake. 976 people were injured, 8 people are still missing. More than 73,000 structures in the area were damaged and 14,500 completely destroyed. The residents of the area were left without safe drinking water and sanitary facilities. Waterborne diseases, for example, typhoid and cholera, were a problem in the affected areas. Many historic buildings, for example, a 17th century limestone church in Lubbock town and a 16th century basilica in Cebu, were badly damaged by the earthquake. A total of 2.5 billion Philippine peso worth of damage to public buildings, roads, bridges, and flood controls were reported in the worst affected areas of Bohol and Cebu. So this is a photograph showing some of the earthquake damage. Some positive effects. A number of earthquake-proof buildings have been built that are better able to cope with the tremors. These buildings were installed with rollers or movable columns that allow them to sway from side to side slightly with the movement of an earthquake. Tsunamis. If an earthquake occurs under the ocean, it can produce a tsunami. A tsunami is a huge tidal wave that moves quickly towards the shore. It can cause major damage and loss of life. So the case study we're going to look at is the Japanese tsunami from 2011. In March 2011, an earthquake measuring 9 on the Richter scale occurred in the Pacific Ocean. It happened 70 kilometers off the coast of Tohoku, Japan. The earthquake triggered a major tsunami with waves of over 40 meters high. The earthquake and the tsunami caused extensive damage. The effects. Up to 16,000 people were killed and 25,000 people injured. Over 3,000 people were reported missing. Around 200,000 buildings were destroyed or damaged. The tsunami engulfed 560 kilometers squared of Japan. It washed away bridges and damaged over 300 fishing ports. A state of emergency was declared following explosions at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Soil, water, and food products were contaminated by radioactive material that leaked from the plant. It will cost an estimated US $122 billion to rebuild the area. Satellite images show the coastline before and after the tsunami. So we can see that there is a big difference with both coastlines. The water has moved inwards in many of the areas. And this is a photograph of the Fukushima nuclear power plant off the coast.